Community Highlights. Another local exclusive from Southeastern Michigan's news and information station, MonroeCountyRadio.com.
This is our town, the place we call home.
Welcome to This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkey, a local public affairs presentation on MonroeCountyRadio.com. Brought to you by Allen Chevrolet Cadillac. All roads lead to Chevrolet. Here's Jeff Yorkey.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of This Is Our Town. I am Jeff Yorkey. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And in our town today, we've got Gary Koppleman. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Gary is he's big into the 4-H here in Monroe, but all over the place. You've been involved in 4-H for since you were in the womb, I hear.
That's right. Back in 1951, I was in my mom's womb, and that was the first time I visited the fair, and haven't missed it since.
Haven't missed it since. So 70 years of the fair, right?
That is correct.
That's pretty cool. 70 years in 4-H. Tell everybody, hey, 4-H. What exactly is 4-H?
It basically makes the best better, and it's a club that the knowledge of parents and leaders is passed down to 4-Hers, and that they can learn the concepts and learn about, at first it was raising crops and raising animals or cooking and canning back in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
But
when it was the Tomato Club.
That's right, it was the Tomato Clubs and so forth. But it is from passing on technology to passing on various skills and various concepts, public speaking and all kinds of things that help children to learn to make their best better.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy, and I absolutely love how that works. Now, you obviously got involved in it because your family was involved in it, right?
That's correct. Yes.
And how did your family get involved? And was both your mom and your dad, or and what did they do? How did they get into it?
Okay. Well, my grandparents came from Germany, and they settled in Monroe County, South Monroe County, and basically there was a club that started back in the 1920s toward Lambertville,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom joined that club as a freshman in high school, and 27, I think, and then she became a leader in 1937.
Yeah.
And so it's just been in our blood. 4-H, that green is in the blood, and it's passed on from one generation. And so it's just basically learning the concepts and basically what Michigan State is known for as a land-grant college. It basically, when it started to promote that passing on of agricultural and home economic types of things to families, and passing it down to one generation to the next, and going to Michigan State, learning about how to raise crops and so forth, and those students would be passing it back up to their parents or whatever as they became farmers.
So where did you go to high school yourself?
I went to Whiteford Agricultural High School.
Okay, Whiteford. They need a new football coach, I hear.
Oh, well, that's true, but that's okay. I didn't play football. I was the drum major at Whiteford.
Hey, everybody's important at Whiteford. Doesn't matter. But I tell you what, and by the way, they got a great band over there. But so they had a 4-H, I assume, when you were a kid. You were involved in 4-H.
Yes, I was.
Now, how old do you have to be to get into 4-H?
At that time it was 10, but now there is. For kids, basically 5 years old.
Really?
Yes.
So that early you can get in. So like from kindergarten on,
Yes.
pretty much, right?
That is correct.
Now, is 4-H, is it something that is it sponsored by the school systems, or is it just sort of supported by the schools?
Well, it's basically, there is a connection somewhat to schools, if basically students telling other students, but 4-H is basically through the extension agent, 4-H extension agent in each county. And basically there are leaders that basically don't have connection with the school, but they may have students from that school or several schools joined together to be a part of the program. It is not necessarily a school function, but it is a community function.
Community function, and it's the school's obviously supported, and that's and obviously that's where a lot of I mean all the kids that are involved, that's exactly where they come from, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. So now after you graduated from Whiteford, you went on to college, became a teacher ultimately, right?
Yes.
Now, did you go to Michigan State?
No, but I went to the other green and white school, Eastern Michigan
You went to
University.
Eastern, okay.
You should change from college prep to general ed because you're just not going to make it in college. And basically, I was on probation, had to go before the professor, and basically, I had to declare what I was going into. I said elementary ed, and she said, well, you got to read this list of nonsense words. I did, and she covered her mouth, and then it said some words, and she said, Gary, you have dyslexia, you also have auditory discrimination, plus your stuttering is also a factor, but you got to stop trying to do it like everybody else. You got to do it your way. And basically, it was going back to 4-H, where I was successful, showing my horse or my entomology project or my chickens or ducks or whatever I took to the fair. That hands-on experiential STEM
Yeah.
at its best was in the 4-H program, and that's where I basically graduated with an A- from Eastern.
No kidding.
And I did it in 3 years.
From being on probation to graduating in 3 years.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. I love stories like that because it's so you're really so fortunate to have been able to find that thing that has been therapeutic. It was therapeutic in helping to assist you to excel in what ultimately became your profession. But on top of that, you realize the importance of that for you, and now you're passing that on to the younger generations.
And I would encourage any family that their child is struggling in the school, academic types of stuff, to join a 4-H club, because that is where I've seen in my own classroom over 46 years, students that I encouraged their parents to join a 4-H club. They did, and that student changed in their whole perspective of what was taking place in the classroom. So 4-H is very, very vital.
So in your teaching career, you taught in Blissfield, right?
I taught in 3 different school systems, but most of them were in Blissfield. I taught at Deerfield my starting year, and then in New Life Christian School, and then back to Blissfield, and that's where I had 32 years at Blissfield.
And during now you were teaching elementary school there?
Yes, 5th grade.
5th grade, really? Now, were you in a self-contained classroom, or did you have? Were you teaching a particular subject?
I basically taught social studies, and the main was science, is where I was the science teacher for basically four classrooms.
Gary Koppleman, the science guy.
Yes.
Right.
Just yes.
But and I think that is I think that's amazing because for those of you who don't know, Gary, before the show he came on, he said he's all worried. You've already talked a little bit about you're worried you were going to stutter and do all these other things. I think it is absolutely remarkable how you've been able to overcome all of these things, because I would never in a million years guess that you had these issues, and it's really, I never would have thought that 4-H could have done that. Now, as a teacher, you had to have run across kids that had the same sort of issues, maybe not exactly what you had, right? And you referred them, I guarantee you, right? You referred them to 4-H.
Yes.
What do you think what skills does 4-H provide for people, for kids, that they're able to use to overcome some of the disabilities that they might have in their own lives?
Well, I think you're encouraging the right brainers, the creativity, the arts, the looking at what's this over here? What's that? Okay, how do they tie together?
Yeah.
And I guess the best example I could give to you is, and it comes basically through 4-H and driving a tractor, but gears. If you have 4 gears in a row, which way will the 4th gear turn? And I had 2 students. I put together a top A student and a student that was really struggling, similar to what myself would have been. And who answered first? The slower student. And I said, well, which way? And he said, well, it would turn counterclockwise. And the A student asked, well, how'd you get that so quick? And he said, I saw it. And he said, you saw it? What do you mean? He said, I saw in my mind which way it turned. And I said, that's exactly what right-brainers do. They see it versus it's not piled one on top of another, and that's what 4-H is. It's learning by experiencing, and that's what is critical within the classroom that we need to experience.
So I would imagine then, as an educator, you were able to tell probably the left brain kids from the right brain kids, right?
Oh yes,
You
Left
probably
and
could
right.
tell immediately.
Exactly.
And so you could take and knowing that, you know that they learn completely different, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so you were able to take, whereas some teachers wouldn't have the foresight to do this. You were able to take the left brainers and say, okay, I'm going to teach you like this, and which is the standard way, right?
Yes.
That's the way most people learn, right?
Yes.
And then you knew, hey, the right brainers over here, we're going to do it this way.
Yes.
See, that is so cool. Oh man, we just last week we had Nelson Henry from he's the new superintendent at Jefferson. I think you need to go talk to him, because I think that's something that I think all administrators ought to realize, and educators ought to be able to pick up on. That's a fascinating perception.
And 4-H, it gives students and gives 4-Hers the ability to learn it their way and do it their way. We don't mass produce students. Mm-hmm. We're not like Ford Motor Company producing cars. In the educational process, we don't mass produce them. And we need to be aware that students learn differently, and there's a different way to go about things, and it's critical. And that's what 4-H allows us to do.
All right, I'd like, if you can, I'd like you to stick around for a minute. I got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about specifically what 4-H does to help those right brainers, but also to assist the left brainers and to help them with their education. And then exactly what is it for? Because a lot of people know of 4-H, but they don't really know the details of it. And then also we got a 100-year anniversary coming up here at the fair, and you're going to be involved in that, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about that if you can come back in a minute. That sound good?
Okay.
All right, back right after this message from my good buddy John Allen over to Allen Chevrolet Cadillac.
When you're looking for a new or used vehicle, you want the best selection to choose from. Allen of Monroe is the largest volume Monroe County dealer with 300 new and used vehicles on their lot. That's way more than the other dealers. Allen Chevrolet of Monroe has been voted the best Monroe County dealer of the year for the past 3 years. When you want the best selection at a great price, there's only one dealer in Monroe County that delivers. Allen of Monroe.
And welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm here with Gary Koppleman. Gary is you're the 4-H director here in town, or what exactly is your title with
I am
4-H?
the community leader, and I'm also on the 4-H council.
4-H council. Okay. So Gary was if you're just joining us, we talked a little bit about Gary and how he got involved in 4-H, and how he's been involved for 70 years, even though he's only 69. No, you're 70, but since he's been in the womb, he's been involved with 4-H. But we also talked about how 4-H really kind of saved his life, and really helped him excel in his passion, which was teaching. And Gary, I got to tell you now, I got to ask, like specifically about 4-H. Like 4-H, if I join 4-H tomorrow, or my kid joins 4-H tomorrow, what would they expect? What would they be learning, and how would it benefit them?
Well, what is their interest? And there are all kinds of clubs, or projects in various clubs that the 4-H'er can learn, from ceramics, making pots, to raising animals, to public speaking or interviewing. We have, Bev and I have 6 children, and out of those 6 children, they learned public speaking and they learned about interviewing. And when they went to get their new job, they basically learned how to go through public speaking before high school. And public speaking in high school, they learned it in 4-H, and presenting projects, and just all kinds of projects that 4-Hers can be a part of and learn. There is a whole list. I think there's 125 various projects besides animals that 4-Hers can basically do and learn how to do it.
And animals is obviously what most people are familiar with, right?
And that's what they think. And most time people will say, well, we live in the city and we don't have room for a pig.
Right.
But they can join 4-H and just take a electrical project, or a woodworking project, or photography. So there's all kinds of projects without animals.
And what now you talked a little bit about interviewing. How is interviewing a skill set that you can learn from 4-H?
Well, you can learn because there is a public speaking project, and also there is a for interviewing for various awards, and going before the council, or there's scholarships that 4-Hers can interview for. And so basically interviewing is part of the whole process of 4-H and learning how to live life.
So it's just one more thing that you're one more skill set that you're getting on top of all of the projects that you may be doing as a part of being a member of 4-H.
Oh yes. For example, and this goes to the horse people, where is the exotic arch in a horse?
Not a clue.
Okay, well, there's these little holes above the eye, and that's where the arch is, right above the eye in the horse, and when you see a horse, but that was a judge asked a 4-H'er about their project, and that was one question that I won showmanship because I knew where the zoatic arch was. So there's just different things like that how long have you raised your hog? What are you feeding your hog? How much protein? So there's various questions that the 4-H'er has to be prepared for to answer in some of the classes like showmanship.
So that prize hog at the fair, part of it is the hog itself, but a lot of it has to do with the guy that's presenting that hog, right?
Oh, you better believe it, because if a hog, he can have all the muscles, but if you let that hog's head go down and walk, it doesn't show off its muscles. But if you take your show stick or your show tube and you tap the jaw of the hog and get that hog to raise his head as you work with him throughout the whole summer, as you walk your hog, that hog raises his head and it shows off his muscles. And so there's things that you need to learn how to do before you show the grand champion hog.
See, now that's pretty cool. Now, if you're into crafts, say you're into pottery or painting or something like that, is there a similar interview process that goes along with something like that?
Sometimes there are, when it comes down to picking a champion, you have to write how you did your project and so forth, what kinds of stain or what kind of paint. And it's more of a written type of thing, but and sometimes it is people ask you, how'd you do that project, and that is knowing that those skills causes you to have a higher rating.
So, and we're going to talk about the fair here in a minute, but I also want to point out to parents, if you got a kid at home and maybe he struggles with things in school, maybe you have no idea why. it sounds to me like, Gary, you would definitely encourage those parents to get those kids involved in 4-H.
Oh, by all means, yes, because it will allow those kids to have success. There will be disappointments, but at the same time, there will be success. You take what you did and you make it better the next year. And so, the involvement of 4-H is very critical in the educational whole process.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the fair, because that's where most people's exposure to 4-H, especially those that didn't get involved in it. I'll be honest with you, I didn't get involved in 4-H when I was a kid. I kind of regret it at this point after talking to you. I wish I would have met you about 50 years ago. I guarantee you I would have been involved in 4-H.
I would encourage you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the fair. We got the 100th anniversary this year of the fair. 4-H has always been one of the main staples of the Monroe County Fair. Anything special going on with you guys at this special event this year?
Oh yeah, we had the 4-H alumni recognition. But during the week of the fair, there will be an activity for every day of the week, from pumpkin or watermelon eating contest to a scavenger hunt to various things, activities for 4-Hers and for the community to do every day. The 4-H Council is planning these events that will happen throughout the week, and it's a very, very exciting week for everybody to come to the Monroe County Fair.
Well, and it's got to be that's got to be the busiest week of the year for you, right?
Pretty much, especially during the summer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so let me ask you this: if I'm a parent, a grandparent, or even a kid who wants to get involved in 4-H, what would I have to do?
If you know a 4-Her, ask them, hey, about your club. When do you meet? Mm-hmm. But if you do not know any 4-H club, you can call the Monroe County 4-H Extension, and the secretary will be glad to point you in the direction of a 4-H club in your area, whether it be Maybe or Ida or Milan or Whiteford area, Erie Mason, whatever area that family lives in. The 4-H Extension office will give direction to what club they can join.
And Gary, like you said before, you don't have to live on a farm. You don't have to be a farmer. You don't have to have enough room to be able to raise a pig or a cow or a goat or a sheep or whatever. Right? It doesn't matter. You can use other skill sets. You can find something else, and by developing those skills, it's a lifelong benefit. That you are a walking poster child for that, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you are too. You know,
and one of the things too, if they have a pocket pet like a hamster, there are pocket pet that they can take to the fair too. So
there you go. So it doesn't matter, right?
That's right.
If you are into animals, but you just don't have enough room for you don't have a farm, you can still get
right.
involved,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Well, I think that is fascinating. I'm so glad to have met you. I think that you should be the world spokesman for 4-H, because honest to God, I swear it's an inspiring story. The entire journey that you've been through in order to get from where you started to where you are now, and the fact that 4-H had such a huge integral role. I can see that now, and I think it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, and I'm so glad that you're giving back to the community. That's really what it's all about.
And I will continue to express, no matter where I am. There's various things that are taking place in my life, that being a spokesman for education, but also being having a testimony of what a 4-H program can do, and especially in my life. Mm-hmm. There's various things that took place, and one of the things I never thought I would be, and everybody has heard of the National Football Hall of Fame or National Basketball Hall of Fame, mm-hmm. but the National Teaching Hall of Fame. We probably have never heard of that, but 46 years in the classroom, and it goes back to 4-H and releasing this teacher in passions and so forth. But it is also, if they want to see what is being done, if they go to Blissfield Community Schools, their website, go to the elementary icon, and there is a bell icon, which stands for the Blissfield Environmental Life Lab, which is basically what 4-H caused this guy to do in his profession to be successful.
Well, Gary Koppleman, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You're an inspiration. Gary Koppleman, teaching Hall of Famer. You're the first Hall of Famer I think that I've interviewed. You know that?
Oh, wow. Well, I was the second teacher in the state of Michigan to be inducted, and there's 5 teachers every year across the United States that are. And if you know a teacher in your community that's making a difference, nominate them.
I know one in my house, so I think now that I know that there's a Hall of Fame, I'm going to induct her. I'm going to nominate her tomorrow. So, because Lord knows she deserves it.
You're going to do that.
I certainly will. Gary Koppleman, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think it's been great, and I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me to be here today.
You got it. All right, that is all the time we have for This Is Our Town. I want to thank everybody for listening. Now we're going to turn it over to my good buddy Bob Vergils as he goes bobbing around Monroe. Take care, everybody. See you next week.
Join us every Sunday at noon and Tuesday at 7 p.m. for another edition of This Is Our Town with Jeff Yorkey, a local public affairs presentation on MonroeCountyRadio.com. Brought to you by Allen Chevrolet Cadillac. All roads lead to Chevy.
This is our town, the place we call home.